I'd been shopping at the same local store for years. It wasn't anything special, just your average grocery store. But it was close to my apartment and always open late, which was perfect for someone like me who worked odd hours. I'd come to know most of the employees by name, or at least by face, since I usually popped in after midnight when the night shift crew was working. That's why I noticed him right away. It was a Wednesday night, about half an hour before the store closed, and I was making a quick run to grab some snacks and a few things for breakfast. The place was quiet, almost eerily so, with only a few other customers wandering the aisles. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the familiar scent of cleaning supplies and old produce filled the air. As I made my way past the front of the store toward the refrigerated section, I glanced toward the registers and froze. There, standing behind one of the checkout counters, was someone I'd never seen before. He was tall, too tall actually, and he had this perfectly straight posture, like a mannequin. His skin was pale, almost waxy, and his face, I don't know how to describe it, but something about it was wrong. His features were too perfect, too smooth, like they'd been sculpted rather than grown. His eyes were dark, almost black, and they didn't seem to blink. I shook my head, trying to brush off the feeling of unease creeping up my spine. New employees weren't uncommon. The store had high turnover, especially for night shifts. But there was something about this guy that felt off. I grabbed a carton of milk from the cooler and made my way down the snack aisle, tossing a bag of chips into my basket. As I reached the end of the aisle, I overheard two employees talking by the stockroom door. I recognized both of them. Lisa, a short girl with curly hair who always seemed half asleep, and Tom, a guy who worked in produce. I heard they caught the guy who broke in last week, Tom was saying, his voice low. But they haven't found everything that was taken. Some of the equipment's still missing. Yeah, and we're still understaffed, Lisa muttered. Corporate's been writing us about hiring more people, but no one wants to work nights anymore. I paused for a moment, pretending to look at the shelves while I listened in. Tom sighed. Yeah, and now we've got this new guy. I swear, he's weird. Lisa laughed softly. You mean the mannequin guy? Yeah, he creeps me out. Have you noticed how he doesn't really move? My heart skipped a beat. They were talking about him, the new guy at the register. I felt my palms start to sweat as I made my way to the next aisle. There was something wrong with that guy, and now I wasn't the only one who thought so. But why would the store hire one so strange? Especially with everything that had been going on, break-ins, missing equipment, and now this new employee who didn't seem human. I grabbed a box of cereal and a loaf of bread, my mind racing. Maybe I was just overreacting. Maybe he was just an awkward guy who wasn't good with people. But as I made my way toward the checkout lanes, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The store was nearly empty now, and the lights seemed to flicker more than usual. The other customers had left, and I could see Lisa and Tom talking in hushed voices by the stockroom again. The new guy was still standing at the register, his back to me as I approached. I glanced at the other checkout lanes, hoping to see one of the regular employees, but they were all closed. I had no choice but to go to his lane. As I placed my items on the conveyor belt, I noticed that he hadn't turned around. He just stood there, facing forward, his hands resting unnaturally still on the counter. Hi, I said awkwardly, trying to break the silence. Slowly, almost mechanically, he turned to face me. His eyes were even darker up close, bottomless, like two pits of black. His smile stretched too wide, his lips pulling back to reveal perfectly straight, two white teeth. And then he spoke. Good evening, he said in a voice that didn't match him at all. It was flat, emotionless, like someone who had learned how to speak by mimicking others. I tried to keep my composure as I handed him my items. His movements were jerky, almost robotic, as he scanned each one. The beep of the scanner echoed through the otherwise silent store, and I noticed that Lisa and Tom had disappeared into the back. I was alone with him. Something was definitely wrong. As he handed me my receipt, I forced a smile and reached for my bags, but before I could grab them, he leaned in close, too close. His breath smelled like chemicals, like the store's cleaning supplies. "Do you need help finding your soul?" he whispered, his voice barely above a murmur. I felt my blood run cold. My heart raced, and I took a step back, my mind screaming at me to run. I grabbed my bags, muttering something about being fine, and headed for the exit, my legs shaking as I tried to walk as casually as possible. But as I reached the door, I heard something that made me stop dead in my tracks. The sound of footsteps. Not the normal, soft footsteps of someone walking across the store, but heavy, deliberate steps, like boots on a hard floor. I glanced back, my breath catching in my throat. He was following me, the new guy, the one who wasn't human. He was walking toward me, his too perfect face expressionless, his eyes locked onto mine. His steps were slow and measured, like he had all the time in the world. I bolted for the door, my hands fumbled with the handle, and I slammed it open, practically tripping over my own feet as I ran into the parking lot. The cold night air hit me like a slap in the face, and I sprinted toward my car, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I threw my bags into the passenger seat and started the car, my fingers trembling as I gripped the steering wheel. As I backed out of the parking space, I dared to glance at the store's entrance. He was standing there, just inside the sliding doors, watching me. His face was still emotionless, still too perfect. His dark eyes followed me as I drove away, and I could have sworn I saw his mouth twitch into another too wide smile. I didn't stop until I was halfway across town, my mind racing with questions I couldn't answer. Who was he? What was he? And why was he working at my local store? I haven't been back since. I don't know if I ever will. But sometimes, late at night when I'm driving home, I can't help but wonder, if I stopped by the store again, would he still be there? Standing behind the register, waiting, watching, pretending to be human.